I'm a healer. I'm a Reiki healer. I work with all types of different energy, plant energy, nature spirits, whatever you like. And I read people's energy, and I help them to balance it. I teach them sort of through that way. But the first kind of introduction I had to that was after I gave birth to Ruby, which was 17 years ago. And I went through, 6 months later, I was diagnosed with autoimmune thyroid condition. And the thyroid is your throat, it's your voice. When I gave birth to Ruby, I was, I come from a family of, 6 children. I'm the oldest. My mom was 30 when she had 6 kids. So it's like, you do not, like, you're a warrior. Like, you don't come to me unless you're bleeding, unless you've got, a bullet.
She knew about no weakness. Right?
Yeah, my mom was like Anne Hull. She's like, no weakness for sure. So she taught us that sort of like, you're tough. So when I gave birth to Ruby, I didn't know how to express my emotions around that. And I was like, right, we're going to forge forward and this kid is going to be amazing. And of course she is, but I didn't deal with the emotions at the time. And that manifested 6 months later. I say, if we don't express, we suppress. I suppressed, and that got trapped in my body. Those emotions got trapped in my body, the emotions of grief. And so it was, 6 months later, I was diagnosed with a thyroid to the point where I stopped sweating. It was quite severe. I was sweating, but, it was like my body was shutting down.
Wow.
So that was a wake-up call. And I went through a lot of different, I went to 5 doctors to get it diagnosed in the first place. When I finally did get it diagnosed, she said, you're a walking coma. I don't actually know how you're functioning. And then I really, because my background is medical initially, and it was medical and fitness actually, that's how I came to the Middle East in 96. I sort of went into this kind of, just researching, how do I fix this? How do I fix it? So many different things. I went to naturopath, I found out that I had a massive intolerance to yeast. And the interesting thing about that, and see, my throat is starting to... This is how energy works. So there's an element of that still in my throat. An element of that maybe I still haven't healed because I'm talking about it and my throat is, it's closing up. And
let's hold that thought.
Yeah.
How often do you catch things like that? That something's happening in your body as you speak about something that's affected your life massively, and then you're super aware of it. That's why you just pulled it up. But how deep do you go with it?
I'm quite aware of it because I work I've worked a lot. I mean, I've healed my autoimmune. It took me the last 3 years. So COVID, I started healing it, and it took me 3 years of, I will say, like, a lot of hell. And I'm going to say that because it's the truth, but it was, as you know, when you do hard things, it builds resilience, and, it takes you out the other side to a much easier, more peaceful place, which is where I sit now. Again, maybe I'm not fully 100% healed, but I have the self-awareness around it. I can say, okay, I'm speaking about this. There's an energetic imprint there. So everything has an energetic blueprint or an energetic imprint. So in our energy field, we have physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic layers. This is according to yogic philosophy. And within that energetic layer, our aura, if you like. And I think people can relate to the word aura now. I think it's okay to talk about auras now.
It's interesting how it's evolving.
See, again.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about that is, everything is, if you can think of your energy field like a library, and within that library, everything that's ever happened to you exists within that energy field. So you either accept that that's there, you confront it. Really, healing is, for me, what I've learned is it's not that complicated. It's just acknowledging it, seeing it's there, and allowing it to be what it's meant to be. And then generally it just leaves you then. It's like a small kid when they they tug on their moms. Their mom's talking to the friend, and the kid's tugging, mom, and you're like, mom's like, just go away, will you?
Yeah.
And when you just turn around and you say, yes, Johnny, Ruby, whoever, how can I help you? They often go, they say what they want. You help them, they go away. It's the same thing. That's my analogy for that. It's like, it's, So I feel like the self-awareness comes when you're willing to look at that, when you're willing to face things that are coming into your awareness. You know, we have stuff come in our awareness all the time, but people like noise. You know, we like noise. I don't want to say they, because I do it as well. We like noise.
There's power in noise, though, isn't there? There's energy. Noise is energy.
Yeah, it's true. So there's noise. So if you're able to listen to that noise and understand it, I guess then you can have a better chance of deciding what noise you want to keep and what noise you want to let go.
I guess that's the bottom line with noises and sounds. We'll often use certain noise to increase energy, certain noise to reduce energy. So it's about figuring out which noise impacts your energy in the way that you want your energy to go.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense to anyone? No,
it does make sense. And going back to what I was saying to you about when I started my healing journey, the one thing that I really wanted to share, which I hope could help someone, is that, you know, when I was doing this research about my thyroid and how, you know, going to this bioresonance healer, you know, I found this intolerance to yeast. And she said to me, do you know what yeast is resonant? You know, what does it resonate with? What emotion does it go with? And I said, no, I have no idea. And she said, it goes with resentment. And I said, and I was talking to her at the time about my parents, because a lot of stuff comes up when we do healing. A lot of times we go back to our, you know, our roots, right? And, you know, and I said, resentment, really? And she said, yeah. And I said, you know, I have had a lot of resentment about my parents and the way, you know, my childhood was. And so I said, are you saying that if I just like acknowledge that I can heal? And she said, well, you make the decision. You work it out, you know? Wow. And I said, okay, so I don't resent my parents. And I just said it out loud. And no word of a lie, I started like losing weight. The yeast started to die in my body. I was doing also not having sugar. I was also omitting yeast from my diet. But I had done that for a few weeks and nothing was shifting. And it wasn't until I confronted the actual vibration of what is behind this intolerance on an emotional level that things started to really fly.
There's so much here that we can unpack. This is brilliant. I want to go to, you were not well, and you went what we'd call I don't know if it's traditional or modern route. I think it's actually the modern route. The traditional route is to go to traditional medicine, but you went really the modern route of, okay, I'm not feeling good, I'll go and see a doctor. That process, well, talk us through that process, because you obviously went to multiple doctors and then you went to what, for the purpose of the show, and I think for the purpose of life, we should call, you went to traditional routes. So you went the way that most people go. You're not feeling good, you call a medical professional.
Yeah, I went to 5 doctors, and my background is medical. I worked in pathology labs. You know, that's how I I went to Saudi in 1996 as a 23-year-old female. Do the maths. And, you know, and I started my journey in the medical field. So I had a trust and a belief in the medical field. I also had some other, you know, things. And I always say now, like, I don't want to ever dismiss any system, because I feel like they all have value in some way. If I get in an accident, God forbid, please send me to the trauma unit. Like, you know, don't try and stitch me up with essential oils. It's not gonna cut it.
Egyptian cotton.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, there's a time and a place for everything. That the medical system at that time did let me down, I felt. However, I did eventually get on medication, and I took medication, like the allopathic, they call it medicine, which is you know, what most people use, right? And I was on that medication for 14 years. But at the same time, I started looking at, because when I went on the medication initially, I didn't actually have any great result from it. And it wasn't until I started doing healing, until I started changing my diet, until I started looking at mindfulness, I don't know, a myriad of things really, that I started to notice the power of, you know, I guess I would say a lot of Eastern philosophies of healing, you know, Ayurveda, yes, you know, Chinese medicine, the root of real medicine, right?
it's interesting that, because I'm now trying to mix that concept of traditional medicine with something that you said, and I massively agree with, that retaining emotions is causing us to remain in sick states. We're not healing ourselves because we're retaining these emotions. However, if we look at tradition, emotions have been suppressed through probably our parents and definitely our grandparents. Like, conversations like this probably wouldn't happen, talking about emotions. I mean, you and I did a show a few months ago for your podcast, which is launching soon, folks. I'm keep on pressuring Steph. She's got a really good show. She speaks and you know, that was filled with emotions, which maybe even 5 years ago or 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had a similar conversation maybe. So we're saying, on the one hand, traditional medicine is fantastic, but we're also saying we need to release emotions by talking, and that's something that's quite new. So where do these two kind of, how do they meet? Or is it just in the last 100 years that we decided to stop talking about how we feel?
So I think we have to look at ourselves as a holistic being, because we are. We're called human beings. So human comes from the word hue, which is color. Hue, or a man, like, you know, man, so man, woman, whatever. Hue, which is color, because we are actually, you know, our aura is, you can actually photograph it with Kirlian photography and see all of the colors. We are colorful beings. We're meant, you know, like, this is who we are. Yeah. So human beings, why? Because we're meant to be who we're meant to be, right? So out of these, what I mentioned before, we have the physical, you know, the physical aspect, and this is where medicine comes in, because what does medicine do? It treats the physical, right, as a root.
Yes.
But then we have the emotional, so we're discussing that. We also have the mental. We have the spiritual. Now, again, it depends on how people connect with that, but we're spiritual beings first, and we are inhabiting a physical body. Now, again, that's subject to people's opinion, but you know, that's my belief. But it's also the belief of the yogic philosophy. And then we have the energy field. So, which is probably the least looked at, I would say, because I feel like maybe there's just not enough discussion around that. But within the energy field are those 4 layers: the spiritual, the emotional, the mental, the physical. So it all relates. So we do physical fitness. That's the one we're most connected to, our physical. You know, we're primal beings. We're like, you know, we're of the earth. So it's like physical. Everyone gets physical. Yeah, they understand that. You know. Everyone, I think the next one is mental. We have a lot of discussion around mental health now, which is amazing, you know, especially after COVID. So mental's the next one. That's another layer, you know. So different from emotional. They all interweave and intertwine, though, don't they? So I think that's why, again, like mental, you know, so we look at like meditation. So I always say we go to the gym for physical. We, you know, for mental, we might go to a counselor, or maybe we meditate if we're inclined to do that. Maybe some people, again, running, that's meditation, right? Ultimately. So that mixes both. And then we have the spiritual, if you're religious, or again, that can go in the meditation, you know, you do whatever you do for spiritual, whatever that means to you, because that's very, very private, I think, a very, very personal thing. But the energy part of it, do we look at our energy? How often do we look at our energy? That includes your environment. What's in your environment? I know you speak about this a lot. Your energy is who you associate with. Who do you let into your circle? Who do you spend your time with? You're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the time with, right? So what energy are you allowing into your space? What foods are you eating? Again, foods are energetic. You know, you can eat, a Mars bar, or you can have a beautiful acai bowl here at Smith Street Paleo. You know? Yeah. So, you know, again, energy is energy, and it's actually not a difficult concept, but we don't really look at our energy a lot of the times. People they say, well, what do you mean do something for my energy? You know, there's a lot you can do for your energy, and that's just simply things like being in nature, you know, again, cleaning up your environment, as you say. What's in your space? Like, does it make you feel good? Does it make you feel heavy or light? It's a simple question. Does this thing here sitting on my desk make me feel heavy or light? Does it make you feel heavy? Then fucking throw it out. Excuse my language.
No,
but,
it's, and it's interesting. I think about energy a lot. And one of the first questions I was going to ask you is what it actually is. But I think you've almost answered that now, half an hour in, which is it's actually a heightened state of awareness.